Live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Build Your Brand, where we talk about all of the wonderful ways that you can build your brand across platforms. Now, I am just waiting to make sure that it is live on LinkedIn right now. And now it's live, and I'm going to go ahead and tag our guest in the first comment, so that way you can go ahead and follow her if you want on LinkedIn. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Restream, which is sponsoring this amazing live stream. In fact, if you are interested in learning more about how to stream across multiple platforms, check out this link below. And thank you to Restream. Now, I want to introduce our amazing guest. I wish we could do this in person. Unfortunately, we cannot. Kamara, can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, everyone. I wish I could see you all in person myself. My name is Kamara Swaby. I'm a university recruiter at Microsoft, as shown below, however you're seeing it. I've been at Microsoft for, oh my God, it's been almost 4 years. And at this time, I'm currently working in certain sectors of hiring software engineers, interns, and full-time from universities, especially the Mid-Atlantic. Shout out New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, DC. I also work with some HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities as well.
Amazing. And I know that when we met, we were talking about how to be still creative while you're at your 9 to 5, and that feels like forever and a half ago that we met, but still really fun. But I want to spend today talking about what you do best, Kamara, which is helping folks get their first jobs, or maybe their second or third jobs, but really early in their careers. How should you think about building your brand when you're, say, fresh out of college, or you're still in college?
Okay, awesome. So for me, I'm giving advice that I wish I had known. As a first generation low income student, shout out Fly, first gens, the advice I give is important to me, not because I just say it for fun, but also because I think it's important to understand it. So like, you know what best to do for you. So I think one of the first things is, before you get into brand, is realizing what you want to do versus what you don't want to do. A lot of times there's so many opportunities, and in college is like, I want to do this, I want to do that. But realizing like, what are things like you want to do, and what are things that be worthy of pursuing. So oftentimes you hear the story of someone who wants to be pre-med, then they take their bio class and they're like, no. And then you switch over to people who major in computer science or major in marketing or whatever major is available in their college by different names. One of the things I definitely recommend is, if there's some things you're interested in pursuing, look into it using platforms like LinkedIn in order to see what other people who are in your field or in your interest areas are doing and how they're applying it. Because oftentimes, especially if you're coming from certain backgrounds, you're not aware of the opportunities that are available to you. And they go by many different names. Some is a developer, some is a software engineer, if we go into the CS realm. Sometimes it's a program manager, product manager, project manager. So it's like seeing all the availabilities out there and working yourself into that in terms of focusing on a career. And of course, there's different assets of yourself that you want to portray as well in your brand, like who you are as a person. What are you passionate about? Because one of the things you have to think about is how you're going to set yourself apart from other people who are on similar paths like you. So like, you're in a class of, let's say 20 people, same major. Like, of course, on your resume, you're going to put the classes you take. Maybe it's that tic-tac-toe thing you programmed. But what are the things that stand out about you that is not maybe something else that someone else does? Maybe it's the projects you're doing. Maybe it is the passionate things you do on the side. Maybe it's the awards you have, or maybe it's just the things you volunteer. Oftentimes I say volunteering is important to me, and to see it on a resume, because it shows, oh, not only do you love this, you're teaching it to others. So giving those assets of yourself is a great way to start the building blocks of a brand that you can communicate through your LinkedIn, through your resume. So not only can you find opportunities that are great for you, but you can be found by those opportunities. And as a recruiter who actively searches people on LinkedIn, it's sometimes those keywords and those stories that makes people, not just the recruiters, but hiring managers or people in certain parts of the business, interested in pursuing you and giving you the chance.
So I have to stop you right there and then, of course, ask, what are some of these keywords that people should be thinking about to include on their LinkedIn or their resume?
So it definitely depends on the thing you want to pursue or what you're open to be pursued by. So like for the software engineers in the room, in the skill section, please put the coding languages you know, because people will search you by those coding languages, whether it's C++, Java, or maybe even those specific ones that like only like 1 out of a million people know. You'll be surprised about, I have this one project and I need this skill set. Find me someone who has that skill set. And of course, in the experience section, like putting examples of your experience too. So it's like, oh, I love like doing this AI and machine learning project. We read those things. And with the more flourishing your resume, your LinkedIn is, the better we understand what you're capable of and what you want to do. Because they're both are important. Because if I find you and I think you'll be great for, let me give a random, like doing front end, but you want to do Xbox. Like that's misaligned. Like just like, so stating what your passions are. So that's the great summary section. But also in terms of keywords, what are the tools you use? What are the skills you use? What are the things you volunteer? What are you passionate about? That's a great way to make sure that you're a person who is found.
Yeah, so we want to get I think what's helpful here is what you're saying is we want to get as far away from adjectives as possible. And we want nouns, we want person, places, things, we want verbs. We want words that are easily searchable. So like you said, technical programs that you work with. And if you aren't a technical person, some of the non-technical programs and some of the non-profits that maybe you even volunteer at, any names I think that are searchable, those probably sound like really good places to start on a new resume.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think definitely on a new resume or new LinkedIn. Of course, there's some things that like maybe someone does not know, but overall, I think it's really great to say, if I read this description on your experience, what can I learn about you? If I read the skill set, what I might assume you might be good at. And if you have your summary and what you want to pursue, it's great. I know what's your brand. I know what you might be great at. And like, I will keep you in my pocket. So if there's a specific opportunity I think will be amazing for you, I will fight in order for you to get that opportunity.
Amazing. So I think it is so fun that recruiters are looking to get you a job, and I think that's the beauty of platforms like LinkedIn, is that people want to get you a job. So be searchable. So that way they can give you the job that you want to be doing. And I think that is so helpful, that you want the right keywords and you want the right words that describe exactly the kind of job that you want and are looking for. And correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes it helps to actually even just say the position that you want to do. Like if you look at product managers and you're like, oh, this is so cool, I want to become a product manager, it's sometimes helpful to even write on your LinkedIn that you are looking for specifically a product manager role.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I'll just temper that by saying, like, depending on the company you're looking at as an example, maybe it's termed differently in another company.
Yeah.
So like maybe like saying like these are the type of roles I want, and like give an description of the things you're passionate about and want to do, so it can widen your scope. So like sometimes like, hey, like this is called this particular name, but it's the same details as a product manager. Would you be interested? So like definitely if there's something you're passionate about and you're like at least 80, let's even 75% sure, because you're human, you can change. If you're 75% sure, like it wouldn't hurt putting it on your LinkedIn, but just making sure to give yourself the freedom in order to say, hey, like if there's something different that is along those same lines, and open to it.
So just make sure that if you do write the job that you want, that you use a descriptor, then you just describe what it is that what excites you about that particular job. So that way people can say, okay, well, we have a role that's similar. And that does make sense that it's of course called different things at different companies. I know we've all been there with different job titles and things like that throughout our careers. Okay, well, great. So let's get into it a little bit deeper. So say you've gotten your first job or you've gotten your second job, you have whatever that first role is under your belt. Now what do you do with your LinkedIn? How do we grow our LinkedIn and or our resume?
First things first, always keep updating it. I know some people who after their first job was like, I'm not touching this anymore. I'm free. I said,
you're never free.
Until you make it to a point where like you're finished.
And I want to drop in really quickly right before we were talking about this YouTube video. Everyone, go ahead and check this YouTube video out. It's also on resumes and branding. Please watch it. And here is the link to it right now. And I interrupted you, my dear, so please go on.
I love it because your resume and your LinkedIn should be a living document. So I think definitely taking the time, like after a certain quarter, while you're at your job, taking note of all the experiences you have is like, oh, and I say this to myself and all my students, even when they're still in school. And it's still something that applies for people in a full-time role. It's like, after, let's say, a month or every 2 weeks, write down, like, what are the things I've accomplished? I did this amount of work. I worked with these teams. It's not only great for my performance review, but it's also great for me to update my resume and also great to update my LinkedIn because the mind is fickle and we forget things. And like sometimes
I feel like this is great advice, even if you are more senior in your career, to just keep track of things that you've done every couple of months, because, you know, we get old person-y and we forget what it is that we've accomplished. So what an amazing pro tip.
Yeah. So you downplay yourself and then you forget, oh, I did this. So it's a great way to keep track. So when it comes time, and you could put maybe a timer for yourself or a block on your calendar, you can say, okay, let me update my LinkedIn. I got these new skills. I've did this skill. I worked with this person. I leaded a project. So it's a great way to keep yourself fresh. So when it comes time to a new opportunity, you can be like, oh, I do have these skills and I have these skills. So it keeps you aware of your potential and what are the things you can bring to the table. Because after you look at your LinkedIn and you didn't do anything, it's like, oh, like I didn't do anything, which is a lie because you did do something. And this is a lesson sometimes I have to remind myself. So sometimes I put notes, sometimes I keep track of data, like this is the amount of people I hired, this is the amount of social media posts I create, and the numbers behind them just to make sure I'm backing it up. So if someone gets a chance for an interview, I can just remember those off key. So it's like, it helps you become better, more prepared. So
I really like this idea of putting it into your calendar every 2 months. So it just becomes a habit, a routine that you check in with yourself every 2 months. And I also really love this pulling out metrics, because as we know, people love numbers and they love hearing numbers. And they love keeping track of numbers to show that you have done something, because 0 social media posts versus 200 social media posts a month, there's a huge difference between that. And you may not have even realized that you've done, say, 200 social media posts if you are not tracking them. I myself am pretty terrible at this, but it is great advice.
Yeah,
I know.
but definitely,
I'm getting the lecture right now, live, guys. So this is not just for you. This is also for me. We are learning together how to build our brands more effectively.
And then, of course, this is something I say all the time. People might be sick of me saying this. Like, your LinkedIn is not the place for you to be humble. You track yourself. So, like, you can say, this is what I bring to the table. This is my bragging rights. Of course, there's a limit of being too braggy. But, like, you need to be confident I'm gonna have to tell myself that in a month or two. But like having to remind yourself, this is the things I've accomplished. This is my hands doing the work. And then all the little numbers, like how many people saw my post, how many times it got shared, how many people who referred me, or any little detail that tells the story. Because overall, branding is about the stories you can tell. And the theme.
I'm definitely all about that. What stories can we tell with our brands? And also how can we connect the dots for people who may not see how one thing has led to another? I remember, so I graduated with a degree in biology, which is basically useless at this point, because I didn't, I've never done anything with genetic research like I was doing in my undergrad, but there was a lot of pieces of what I did in undergrad that helped me get my first real 9-to-5 job, which is I learned organization. I was actually pretty versed in Excel because I had to input a lot of data, and you don't think about these things until somebody asks you, literally, do you know how to use Excel?
So many people on their resumes, like Microsoft Office. And then there's some people who get certifications on this, like, oh, you're that. And then it's like the experiences. But I think the people I've recruited that I most remembered is the people who A, had a brand, and B, had a story, and C, both. I remember one intern that I knew her before, but then she talked about the story how she loves interviewing with us, but like she had to take like hurry back home because she was working like 4 to 5 jobs to make it through college because she was supporting herself. And it's like the persistence about what you're passionate about and the things they want to pursue. And those stories stick with you in terms of making sure what's worth it. And we hired her. I was happy.
That's a success story. So I also love that the more you are doing you and you are working hard and you are putting yourself out there, the more you will be rewarded by getting your first job.
And not just your first job, but any sort of opportunity. Yeah. I think one of the being a brand or learning how to brand is being vulnerable. And vulnerability is not just like, I'm sad. It's also about asking for help. Declaring your interest, like saying, this is actually something I want to do, and saying it out in the open versus keeping it to yourself. Being able to say that and having it in a forum or other social media platforms, you'll be surprised on how nice people actually are in terms of being willing to help you, especially if you use the right hashtag. So like it gets shared, and then the right person or the right people can say, hey, I can help you look over your resume. Hey, we talked like 3 years ago. But like, I know someone who'd be great mentor, or I would be willing to be your mentor or your sponsor. 2 different things. So I think being vulnerable about certain aspects of yourself it's tricky because it's vulnerability. But I think being able to do it is it leads you to more paths than not being vulnerable.
Right.
So I definitely like see that, especially with the people I've seen, is like, hey, I'm passionate about this. Can you tell me more? The worst people can say is no, or not like the post.
So I think really being vulnerable with your interests, or being open with your interests and what you genuinely care about and what you are genuinely excited about, I think that always drives people to want to promote you and help you, because I think a lot of people are really lukewarm. I think a lot of people are kind of like sitting on the fence, and they're like, well, I kind of like this, I kind of like that, which is totally understandable because we all have a ton of different interests. But it is so helpful when you are focused and you really care about something. Then it is really clear, and people can help you, and they can direct you to the right person that would make sense for you to get that next step. And I love that you pointed out really quickly that mentors are different than sponsors. I love this discussion always because people don't understand that mentors, and feel free to give me your definition too, mentors are really the people that will give you that good advice because they're opening their book of life to you. And sponsors are the people who will put their own reputation on the line for you. They will open those doors for you.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So like again, advice, and then mentorship can it can have an expiration limit. It could be a mentor because you were interested in X, but maybe you're not interested in X anymore. Or maybe they're a good mentor for a certain aspect of yourself. Some people have like a board of directors of mentors for certain aspects. While the sponsor is the person who will take a chance on you, put you in a place that has like weight. Maybe it's monetary backing. If you're starting, let's say a startup, monetary backing is a sponsor. Maybe it is like giving you a position, giving you a role or a different responsibility, or again, as you said before, putting their name on the line in order to give you some sort of like idea or advantage.
Right.
So definitely think like LinkedIn and places like it are great ways to find people on purpose, randomly, or by someone going into your DMs, hopefully appropriately.
I know there's always the unfortunate part of people inappropriately going to your DMs. I'm sure you've gotten that. I am positive I have gotten that. We don't need to get into that right now, because what we're doing is we're helping people get their first job or their second job or their third job. So let's go really quickly into what are some no-nos that people should not put on their LinkedIn.
So those are two different things. So like there's the profile and their, what's it called? Their scrolling feed.
Newsfeed.
Sometimes words are failing me. It's only Tuesday.
It's okay. It's Friday.
So for let's say your LinkedIn, I won't call it necessarily a no-no, but I would say the things to avoid are things that don't serve you any purpose. So like, if you're not serious about maybe using a tool or a skill in a certain fashion, or don't lie. Don't lie. So look, you'd be surprised at people who get caught up saying that they have a skill when they don't. Some people can fake it till they make it. I'm not like promoting it, but it's definitely making sure, a phrase I say, if you put it on your resume, you put it on your LinkedIn, it's fair game. So what are the things you feel confident about telling the story or the background on? Being very specific on like what's your role in this group project. So there's some people who do 90% of the work, and then that one person who comes the day of to present. So like being honest on what your experience is, and if it is not working, like if it doesn't fly, then don't make it fly. Another thing I see is that sometimes people, I was in a DM conversation about it, copying from someone else's LinkedIn. And I get like, you're inspired by other people. I'll say inspired. We're going to keep it cute. You're inspired. And maybe you did the same exact thing, but like put it in your own words, because there's different things you did too for a project. So definitely not copy, especially if you didn't do the same thing. Those are the biggest call outs that I can think of at this point in time. Being honest, being truthful, like making sure you list as much as you can. Like I call resumes in LinkedIn, like think of it as good selfie light. You want to put yourself in a good light. And that's something you can put on your newsfeed as well. What are the things that when someone looks at this post, they're getting the best of you, as opposed to like a selfie where the shadows are wrong. It's not showing your best features. So if there's like vulnerability, again, it's very weird because like you want to be vulnerable, but like choose what best to be vulnerable about in order to make sure if I post this, what would people get out of it? They know I'm interested in X or Y. And of course, there's the general guidelines like don't be rude, don't be stuff like that. Because overall, I think at the end of the day is thinking about the summation. After someone looks at my post, what would they get out of me? And like, what can they bring to my table? And what can I bring to them?
It's a little bit like Instagramming your career, right? So you want the best highlight moments of your career or your pre-career to share with everyone on LinkedIn. So you want things that people take a look at and they know right away what that post is about and also what it is that you accomplished. Because I do see a lot of people, and this is of course, not just applying to folks who are new to their careers. I see this a lot with people who are well into their careers, do like a 12 paragraph essay on LinkedIn, right, with a million pictures or other things. That is not actually an article, it's just a ramble. So you want to make sure that you are concise and that you have a point to what you are saying and what you're trying to share, because that will just help people understand what it is that your brand ultimately is.
Oh yeah, definitely. So like some people are great storytellers, and if it's an intriguing story that has like a lesson at the end, I love it. Like great read. But definitely
everybody should just be LeVar Burton. Let me just throw that out there.
If I had LeVar Burton's voice, my vulnerable thing is that I heard the recording of myself in the link we sent, and I was like, my voice is very high pitched. I wasn't embarrassed, but I think it's important to do so in order to share information. But if you're good at using certain mediums, some people are great at doing the videos. Some people are great about the story in written form. As long as it has a point, maybe it's not about getting your next job, or maybe it's not about I'm learning some. I want to learn something. It's not an ask, but just giving an update about where you are. I think it's all worthwhile. It's just making sure it's worthwhile in the best way that people can commiserate on, celebrate you on, because life is a journey. Work and your experiences are a journey. And I think LinkedIn shows that ride.
And I feel like this is maybe how you and I are similar. I personally believe you should be only selling, right, like 10 or 15% of the time. And the rest of the time you should be sharing. You should be sharing what's going on with your career, your life in ways that are relevant to your audience. Because once again, different platforms, different audiences. So maybe not always appropriate to share drunken party pictures that you would share on Instagram or TikTok, to share that on LinkedIn.
Definitely. And I bring boundaries. Boundaries are important. So like my LinkedIn is my professional. You know that meme about your LinkedIn versus your Instagram versus LinkedIn. So like for me, like my Instagram is personal. Like sure, I'll say I'm happy at work, especially if it's a cool photo or with someone. But like in terms of doing stuff professionally, like if I get a DM about, hey, I want to get a job, or like someone tries to friend me on Facebook, I'm like, no.
I have this one thing about Facebook, because I've worked with C-level executives before on their brands. And let me tell you, their number one pet peeve is people who DM them on Facebook and Instagram, because they definitely, Instagram sometimes is okay, but Facebook is a never okay for people, because Facebook is really a place for a lot of people to talk with their close friends and family. And so people who get outreached a lot too, they want you to reach out to them on LinkedIn, on Twitter, like on these other platforms that feel slightly more professional.
And definitely a lot of people who are open to having like communications through Facebook, either they declared on their Facebook profile, constantly for this. Sometimes it gives me an idea. I'm going to say no to that on my profile. This is not for work, so don't ask me about that. But another time they have pages. They have pages and things to follow by. So that's a great way to either interact with them or the people that work for them. And who knows, maybe someone who's in control of their account is the person that says, this person is great. You should talk to this person. So I think it's definitely like reading context clues about, is this person talking about work on their Facebook profile? This is not an invitation to go on my Facebook profile, by the way. Nor my Instagram. I have a separate food Instagram, but I'm not going to promote it here. But I think in general is like understanding that LinkedIn is the place to go network and learn from others and see what are potential lifestyles or paths for yourself. Are there some people who use LinkedIn for other things? Maybe, but like we're not going to promote it on this channel. And I will
basically, if you were, say, a professional chef, right?
Yeah.
And you used LinkedIn, you absolutely could post food videos 24/7 because this is your career. Now, if you are just casually cooking all the time, I would suggest that that content maybe doesn't live on LinkedIn unless you want to make it a career. And it can live on your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube, whatever channel it is that it can live on that's not LinkedIn. So it's really helpful to think, is this what I want my career to be? And if so, that's the kind of content that's appropriate to share on your LinkedIn.
And of course there's a balance, because maybe the cooking has a story behind it. Like, hey,
Sure, yeah.
talking about, I'm so glad that I'm doing remote, that I have time to cook.
Yes.
So I think it, like, not, if the content, think about the story the content has, and then you'll be surprised by this, the idea that, hey, it might have something relevant. It's like, oh, I really I want to be a part of your company because I like having work-life balance. I didn't know that was a thing. So I think is like thinking about, if I'm posting this content, whatever it might be, maybe it's bragging, what is the point that I want people to get out of it?
I always think confidence, but not ego. You want to just share what it is that's going on in your life, but you don't want to be like, this is better than everyone else's life.
Oh yeah, not necessarily. Some people might do it anyway. But I think overall it's basically, if you want to do a brand, what is the story around each post? What, like, it might have an overall theme. Maybe it's like doing certain aspects of yourself, like, I still have the time to relax, or like, this is my family, I love them. So it's definitely depending on who you are and what you're comfortable doing.
Absolutely. I think there's a nice balance between sharing parts of your personal life and sharing your career. And on that note, I want to thank our amazing guests and thank everyone for tuning in to this LinkedIn Live. You can watch the replay here on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Thank you to our special guests. We hope to have you back soon again.
Oh, definitely.